Nice. Yeti start microphone. Hey, how about now? Now I'm getting a little bouncing on the meter there. Hello and welcome. Let's see here. I'm going to close this. I think this should be good. And I believe I am live and broadcasting. So, hi and welcome. I am Pat Luther. And welcome back to First Page Feedback. It's been a while. Things have been weird and hectic lately, so just got a new job too, which has thrown my schedule into disarray, as well as a few other things, which I don't need to go into here. But anyways, I'm back. I'm doing a first page feedback again, and I will also continue. I'll pick up the my gaming stream probably tomorrow. We're doing The Last of Us, so if you're interested in that, tune in then. If you subscribe, you'll get notification when I go live. I don't think I'm going to be on a set schedule for a while, but it'll probably be Mondays and or Tuesdays in the evening, Pacific time, for a little while. Anyways, so here I am. Last time we were here, we did the widely acclaimed worst fantasy story ever published, which was a lot of fun. That's The Eye of Argon. And this time we're going to go from one of the widely acclaimed best storytellers ever, which is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in one of his most famous creations, Sherlock Holmes. And this is A Study in Scarlet, which is his very first Sherlock Holmes novel. So this is the first page of his first novel, and let's see how we do on this, or see, yeah, and I'll read it and give some feedback of my opinions on it and how things worked. So I'll read the first page. Here we go. In the year 1878, I took my degree of Doctor of Medicine of the University of London and proceeded to Nutley to go to the course prescribed for surgeons in the army. Having completed my studies there, I was duly attached to the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers as assistant surgeon. The regiment was stationed in India at the time, and before I could join it, the Second Afghan War had broken out. On landing at Bombay, I learned that my corps had advanced through the passes and was already deep in the enemy's country. I followed, however, with many other officers who were in the same situation as myself, and succeeded in reaching Kandahar in safety, where I found my regiment and at once entered upon my new duties. The campaign brought honors and promotions to many, but for me it had nothing but misfortune and disaster. I was removed from my brigade and attached to the Berkshires, with whom I served at the fatal Battle of Maiwand. There I was struck on the shoulder by a Jezail bullet, which shattered the bone and grazed the subclavian artery. I should have fallen into the hands of the murderous Ghazis had it not been for the devotion and courage shown by Murray, my orderly, who threw me across a pack horse and succeeded in bringing me safely to the British lines. So, great. There it is, the first page of the first Sherlock Holmes novel. What's missing? Well, Sherlock Holmes is not mentioned yet, but that's okay. You know, you don't necessarily have to bring in your main protagonist on the very first page. Some people would disagree with that, but I am not one of them. Sometimes it can be more fun to lay out some groundwork first. But let's talk about what he did do here. So there's a huge info dump, right? He just did this big summary of his life. Sounds like some great adventures. I would have loved to hear about them, or read through them. Maybe this would be a great thing to show us, is some of these adventures, but that's not where the story's going. So his info dump, he got his degree, his regiment in the army, his other regiment into the army. He lands on Bay. He chased the unit, which he did. So that's the question, right? Does any of this information come into play later? Because I don't remember it in there. It's been a while since I read A Study in Scarlet. But from here, it pretty much goes into, switches to another character for a while. Goes into some of the details of the Mountain Meadows massacre, and then it goes back to Sherlock Holmes, who's trying to solve this murder. Maybe it does come in later, some of it. Hopefully, we're not expected halfway through the book to remember any of this, which is why I'm not a big fan of front-loading the information, right? Because a lot of the stuff, especially a lot of these unfamiliar names out of context, aren't going to mean anything later because people will forget about them, right? Like, we've got a lot of names of places. The Maiwand, the Berkshires, the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers, Giselle, Ghazi's Murray the orderly. And what's his deal, right? Do we ever hear about him again? I don't believe we ever do. Poor Murray the orderly, devotion and courage. He managed to get this guy under fire while wounded, back to being safely back to the British lines. And that would be an interesting story too. So he brought up several things that could be interesting stories, but none of them are the story he's telling. So let's see, misfortune and disaster he mentions, but doesn't say anything about what it is. He's shot in the shoulder, and that's why he limps now, or something. Not sure exactly what's up with that, so we'll figure that out. Let's see. He catches up to his brigade. He gets there, and then he's removed. Does he say anything about why? Is that his own personal failings? Did he do something wrong? Was it just they needed surgeons in the other brigades more? What was the deal there, right? That's never addressed. So again, a wounded, narrow escape, saved by his orderly. Sounds like an exciting adventure, which we're told nothing more about. So what do we learn? We learn that whoever's speaking is a medical doctor and an army vet. He had several adventures in the army, which aren't detailed yet, but was quite an adventuresome person. And it is at the time of the writing here is sometime after 1878, so we have a time and a place. We don't know how long after. It's not set in 1878, right? Because he mentioned that's when he graduated from school, but he had a whole bunch of adventures and did things since then. So this story could be years or even decades later. I don't remember what year it was written. I think it was written like 1910 or something, I want to say, but I don't actually remember for sure. It was quite some time ago. It was after 1878, though. It may have been only 1880s or 90s. I don't remember. I should have looked at it before I did this, huh? So, okay. So what's missing here, right? Anything about Sherlock Holmes? He hasn't showed up. That's okay. We'll get to him. Right now, this is Dr. Watson, which he doesn't tell us. We know later he's Dr. Watson, of course. So the questions raised are, what's the story, right? I mean, that's my first question. What is the story here? Is there any reason to care about this person? We don't really get a lot of clues about his character, other than perhaps how methodical he was by detailing these specific instances, but without going into detail of them, he just lists them. So he perhaps has a methodical way about him, but we don't know for sure. What's the issue? What's the stakes? We don't know what the problem is yet. We don't know what the stakes are. We don't know what's going to happen. Who else is involved? Well, Sherlock, obviously. I mean, not obviously. From this, it's not obvious. We know this because, it's 100-something years later, and everybody knows who Sherlock Holmes is. But at the time that this came out, nobody knew that. I believe Arthur Conan Doyle was an established writer by then. But this is his most famous creation yet, and this is the very beginning of it. So does any of this? So it's kind of a very slow opening, right? It's a list of things which doesn't give us a lot of context or a lot of information. I'm not sure it would work now. Maybe it worked in 1887. Okay, 1887 is when this was written. So it was set sometime between probably 1878 and 1887. Probably set close to 1887. So I'm not sure. I did look that up, and I wrote it down later in my notes. Let's see. Okay, so I'm not sure it would work though now. This kind of slow opening. Does any of this mean anything to the rest of the story? So I know his experience in the war occasionally gets mentioned, but I don't think he really goes into much detail about it. And I don't remember Murray the orderly ever coming up again. I've read most of the Sherlock Holmes stories, although some of them were 30 years ago, and I don't necessarily remember all of them. 40 years ago, even more. Yeah. It's been a while for some of them. So I'm not exactly a Holmes scholar here, although I have read most of the stories. And it's okay not to mention something, even if it does exist, to inform the character, right? It's okay for you to know that Watson feels he owes his life to Murray the Orderly, but never tell your readers that directly. So you could just not mention Murray, but the fact that he owes it. So this is the thing. You don't need to give your readers every detail of everything you've come up with for this character. There's a lot of stuff I know about all my characters who I've never put in any books, but it does inform still all of their choices, and you can see it reflected in what they do and why, and gives them a consistency of action to have this backstory. Even if the reader doesn't know exactly what it is, they can see that in there, that they do have that consistency. Yeah. So, like, for example, with Murray the Orderly, perhaps that comes through when you show this doctor treating his orderlies with more respect than other doctors usually do. This is 1887. Imagine a lot of doctors haven't learned the importance of treating their, people who work for them with respect. There's a lot of issue with that even today, although there's also a lot of talk about why they should. And I think in 1887 there probably wasn't. There's, especially 1887 Britain, very class stratified society, very much, we are in charge, you are not. You do what we say. Your job is to do what we say. You're the underlings. But perhaps they could show Watson treating them with more respect than that, because the one orderly saved his life and he realized how valuable the orderlies can be. That's just one thing they could do. But anyways, I don't think they really show Dr. Watson doing a lot of medical practice either in there, except when he's never mind. Now I can recall a few instances where he's called on to talk to a specific patient. Sometimes Sherlock Holmes tags along with him, and of course somehow there's a murder mystery involved. Let's see. So yeah, again, it's okay not to know something that doesn't make it in the story, which I just mentioned that, so I don't know why I have that in my notes twice, but there you go. Sometimes you want to be a little redundant. Let's see. And I think that's really about it I can go into right here. So there we go. That's my take on the very first page of the very first novel involving Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Hope you enjoyed it. Come back next time, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing next time. If you're interested in getting feedback on your work, whether published or unpublished, I like the unpublished works because then I can give slightly different feedback, which would be more actionable and useful perhaps for things to think about before publishing. But published work's fun too. This one obviously is published, and so is the Eye of Argon and a couple of the earlier ones I did. The comment or the link will be in the comments or in the description of the video on YouTube. These are all going to go stored on YouTube after they're live. And I will be back next week or tomorrow or sometime with further adventures in post-apocalyptic wasteland of The Last of Us, which I'm about halfway through, I think. So I will see you all later, and thank you very much for joining me.